Hello guys and welcome to episode 74 of the Beat Your Backlog Podcast, a podcast discussing the things gamers like to put off, get to another day, and oh yes, will definitely beat later, their backlog. I'm your host Adam and today we are in the search for some delicious, delectable bananas in Nintendo's Donkey Kong Bananza. And in the wind up to the Nintendo Switch 2's launch a few months ago, and with the sort of announcement that Mario Kart World would most likely be a launch day, one question was on every Nintendo games fan's lips. What is happening with the game from the Super Mario Odyssey team? And the team, called a very unexcitingly Nintendo's Entertainment Planning and Development, they're the developers behind Odyssey, have been quiet for years since Odyssey's release in 2017, with many pundits predicting that they may be working on an Odyssey 2 to help boost the launch of the Nintendo Switch 2. Jump forward to Nintendo's big Switch 2 Direct in April 2025, and it was revealed that no, the team has not been working on a new Mario game, but instead has dusted off one of Nintendo's other 3D platform mascots, Donkey Kong. When I first saw the Donkey Kong Bananza reveal, I was really excited. I've never actually been a fan of Donkey Kong, I should say, and I've actually never played a Donkey Kong game. I was first introduced to Donkey Kong during the Wii days whilst playing Mario Kart Wii, and I've since seen him as kind of a side character to Mario, placing him on the same echelon as sort of Toad and Waluigi, sort of in that tier where he's not like a premium Mario companion like Luigi or Peach. He's like in there, he pops up now and then, there are some crossover games, but I always just sort of saw him as this kind of aging 90s early, like, or even early 80s 90s mascot, which kind of slowly died away as Mario became more prominent. And you know, there has been a lot of Donkey Kong spin-off games over the last few years that didn't really get much traction, and I believe the most beloved games are the 2D ones, the Donkey Kong Country games, and Tropical Freeze was really well liked, even though it was kind of overlooked when it was released on the Wii U. So I wasn't really that interested in Donkey Kong. I also thought his design, I've never liked his design. It always put me off. I didn't really think he was a very inviting character to interact with. He was a bit like, if you remember Kratos from God of War, like the old Kratos was, you know, very, like, he was angry, obviously, like that was his whole thing. And like his determinations were a bit like, this guy isn't a nice guy. Like, I don't really root for this guy. And it's kind of different. But then they remade God of War in 2018, and you're like, okay, this is a new character. He's learned a lot. He has a different perspective on life. And that was kind of how I felt a bit like with Donkey Kong. Like, Donkey Kong just always seemed like this very angry ape with this weird, he always looked very geometrical to me, like very polygonal. Like, I don't know if it's because of games like Donkey Kong on the 64, where he just looks like a lot of triangles and pyramids put together, or polygons put together. But I just never really was that interested in Donkey Kong. So having seen the redesign of him in Mario Kart World first, and then for the reveal trailer for Donkey Kong Bananza, I was really pumped. I was finally like, this is a gorilla I can get behind. He looks awesome. The facial animations were amazing. It was like nothing we've really seen in a Nintendo game at all so far. That level of depth and detail in characters, animation. So I was really excited. And after the Direct, I was honestly jonesying for this new DK game. And luckily, we wouldn't have to wait too long because the game would release on July 17th, 1 month after the Nintendo Switch 2 launched, which is a bit of a strange decision. I feel like I guess since then we've learned how well Mario Kart World did on the Switch because it was the only game at launch. So maybe that's why they were like, let's just make everyone buy Mario Kart and then everyone will buy Donkey Kong as well. Whereas maybe if they launch two games at the same time, people would have to choose, well, I can only afford one of these $80 games or €80 games, so I'll go for Donkey Kong over Mario Kart. Whereas now I feel like probably most people bought both of them. So what is Donkey Kong Bananza? Has it converted me into a Donkey Kong fan? And should you buy a Nintendo Switch to play this game? Let's find out in this week's episode of the Beat Your Backlog Podcast. But before we get into the episode, I would like to remind you that you can support the podcast on Patreon. If you do, you will gain access to all of my content 24 hours early, and you will unlock the Beat Your Backlog bonus vault, which will be filled up with exclusive podcast episodes only for Patreon supporters. And I've noticed a lot of like a bigger influx of traffic coming to the Patreon recently, with a lot of free followers following, which is also amazing. Thank you so much for following. But to try and give those new people that are coming in a little bit of a taster of what they're missing, I have added a snippet of one of my bonus episodes, only like 5 minutes, at the end of this episode, just to give you a taste and maybe to convince some people that are on the fence, maybe to to join the Patreon. So do stick around for that. I haven't decided which episode it will be, but I'm sure whichever one it will be, you'll enjoy it. So if you are interested in supporting my one-man show, head over to patreon.com/Beat Your Backlog or click the link in the description of this episode. And of course, thank you to all of my Patreon supporters. So for a 3D platformer, Donkey Kong Bananza is surprisingly plot heavy, and I mean that in a really good way. The adventure begins with Donkey Kong working in a Banandium mine on Inga Island, and Banandium gem is basically a big crystal banana out on Inga Island when a storm tears the island apart, stealing all of the Banandium gems, and much to DK's despair, even opens up a hole to the planet's core that they're on. Out of this storm crashes a purple talking rock, who quickly ropes DK into a quest to reach the Banandium root, which is found at the core of the world, because it is a mythical power source that can grant any wish, apparently. And they have to race there quickly because they want to get there before the mining villains of the Void Company, who are trying to get there as well, and they're kind of the main antagonists of this game. What starts out as... Oh, my Alexa just went off for some reason. What starts as a standard Nintendo fare, like a big disaster, off you go, takes a sharp turn once the rock reveals itself to be a young Pauline. This spoiler, in quotation marks, I hope I'm not spoiling it for anyone here, but this spoiler was actually revealed in the Donkey Kong Bananza specific direct just before the game came out. And I always thought it was a weird decision that they revealed this. I don't know why why she's a rock at the start, and two, why they then reveal it. Like, okay, it's a rock, fine, but then why they revealed it? Why couldn't they just wait a little bit to make it a surprise when the game happens? It was a really strange decision. The only reason I can think of is that the devs didn't want to spoil the surprise when they first revealed the game in the April direct. But let's put it down to a weird Nintendo decision. Anyway, they do a lot of these. However, what was not a weird decision is making Pauline fully voice acted, and it's not often that we get a fully voice acted character in a Nintendo game where they actually speak in proper sentences in English, because a lot of the time it's just this weird mumbling where they do it where it makes sense in all languages, but no, she's fully voice acted, which makes the game just feel like a level higher than a lot of other Nintendo games. Like, I'm playing Kirby in the Forgotten Land at the minute, and it's just text on a screen. And I was saying in the Discord the other day that I've been playing a lot of Nintendo games, obviously, because the Switch 2 came out. I'm kind of getting burnt out on Nintendo games because there is a formula to Nintendo games that usually, nothing is voice acted. It's all reading. It's all this kind of like either the mumbly voices or the kind of like as the text appears. So this felt very, very refreshing that Pauline talks. On the other hand, Donkey Kong, he doesn't talk. He's an ape. But he does his mumbling, his kind of reaction. So he's like, huh? And This it was fine. I wasn't the biggest fan of them. I was more happy that Pauline actually spoke. But yeah, because it mostly makes the story actually feel like a story rather than a series of events happening one after the other. A bit like in Mario, it's like you see Bowser steal Peach, and then you go and do a couple of levels, and then you see someone else, I don't know, Peach get taken away by Bowser Jr., and it's implied what is happening, but it's not actually, there's no actual plot there. So it feels very modern, it feels very un-Nintendo, but it works really, really well in this game, and I hope Nintendo does it with more of their games in the future. The relationship Pauline and DK have is sweet and quite funny, whether it's in campfire style chats in the getaway where they basically, you go to sleep there and then Pauline nudges DK and is sort of like, are you awake? And then you can choose as the player if you want to listen to what she says or if you don't want to. Like I said, here I found it very, very cute whenever she did this, so I always listened, and she basically gave you a bit of like fluff around the layer or the level that you were currently in, which was very, very nice. And there are a lot of very cool cutscenes. A lot of them are often reused, but there is one where once you finish a main area, Pauline and DK both like beat their chests together, and it looks very, very cute. So I was always happy to see that. And it's just like a lovely touch that they added so much more to these characters to make them feel like actual characters. And I remember when I first saw the game, I felt like the style of the art direction and the animation and the story, it really reminded me of like a Pixar story, and was expecting that I would kind of come to adore these characters of the game as much as I do with some of Pixar's movies. This Wasn't quite the case though. I think the story is good for like a Nintendo 3D platform. I wouldn't even say like other 3D platformers or necessarily other video games, but for a Nintendo game, the story it is a story, like I explained before. It's a little bit kind of all over the place with its pacing. Like the pacing, it can be quite abrupt. Like Pauline goes from being very wary and scared of DK to literally 2 minutes later being like his best friend, utterly trusting him, where I felt like this could have been a bit more of an arc. Like they could have earned that trust a bit more. DK could have earned it, and then that would have made their relationship feel even more endearing. But still, by the time the last 3 hours or so roll around, when the story went absolutely off the rails in like the best way, I was completely hooked. Without spoiling specifics, the finale of this game is absolutely wild, memorable, and completely out of left field. To me, it does feel a little bit unearned, and a bit fan servicey if you are a DK fan. And I think a lot of the nostalgia was lost on me. But still, if you know anything about the wider DK lore, you will enjoy this ending. And if you're a DK fan, you'll absolutely love it. And perhaps unusually for a 3D platformer, Donkey Kong Bananza is split up into 15 in quotation marks layers, each of which has multiple layers within them. However, like every 3D platformer, the layers are themed around the typical bog standard themes, like you have a forest, you have snow, you have desert, you have volcano, etc. But each of them all has a very creative twist. So, for example, the snow world isn't just snow; it's actually made out of ice cream, and it has been mixed with like a lava element, which is hot fudge, like hot chocolate fudge, is the lava. The forest is set in a golden, inside the forest is a huge golden ostrich egg, which acts as a 5-star hotel. And there is a carnival world, but it is built from towers of fast food items like burgers, fizzy drinks, and chips. And each layer has an added, I guess like you would call it, like layer of creativity thrown on top of it, and it makes it feel very, very fresh and interesting. It's very inventive, and crucially, actually, it's all destructible, which is the big thing in this game. And the boxer-like environments, they can be smashed, thrown, and leveled in ways that initially felt like a bit like a gimmick. Like, how can you base a game around you being able to completely destroy the entire environment? But after a while, this felt less like a gimmick and just felt very, very addictive. After 35 hours of playing, I think I enjoyed smashing up the environment even more at the end of the game than I did when first experimenting with it, because my Donkey Kong was leveled up, so I could smash like so much earth at once, which just felt so satisfying to do. And when you get towards the end of the game and you're searching for these Banandian gems, which we'll talk about a little bit later, being able to just clear out land just felt so satisfying, and it's great. It's definitely not a gimmick. It does play out well for the entire game. And there's also these golden bonus rooms that you can find throughout the game, where it's just everything is just golden. You just have to smash as much as you can in a certain amount of time. Also doing that is awesome, and it reminds me of games like Red Faction, except it's filtered through Nintendo's cheerful creativity. But we'll talk about this later. Furthermore, to give the game that DK spice, there are minecart sections sprinkled around the layers, and even as someone who has never played a Donkey Kong game, I know the significance of them to the Donkey Kong lore and game design, and I did enjoy them in Donkey Kong Bananza, but I do wish there was more of them. There was a handful, I would say, throughout the game, and only really 2 that were like challenge areas where you had to do some sort of like twitchy sort of reactionary gameplay. The rest of them were more taxis to get you from A to B, where you had rocks that you could throw at enemies, but they weren't very difficult. You were more just focusing on hitting the enemies and making sure you were doing jumps or collecting gold or whatever. It was cool to see that they brought minecarts back in quotation marks. I guess minecarts never really went away from a Donkey Kong game, but I do really wish they had more challenge levels, because they were just so fun. And I was just thinking, like, it would be so awesome if in the future they did DLC for this game, and it was just, I would just love like a challenge DLC that is just minecarts. I would play that so much, because like I said, it's very twitchy. It's very like at least the 2 levels that were challenged, it's very much learning where you need to be. Like, if the minecart splits, do you want to be on the top level, the medium level, or the lower level, things like that. So that it just offers a lot of replayability. And it's also quite interesting how the game controls in this game. So the button you will be spamming the most is actually the R bumper, which makes DK clap, and it sends out like a sonar or radar wave that bounces off collectibles and then shows you where they are in the world. So you might be, say you're looking at a mountain and you clap, and off in the distance you'll see like a pink or blue, I think it is, a shape of a banana, and you know, there's a banandium gem. Just so you know, I'm going to call banandium gems bananas for the rest of the podcast. And then it gives you a direction of where you need to go, and then you might head through there, like you might smash your way through the mountain, and then realize the banana is encased in an item, not an item, a material that you can't break, and you think, okay, well, there must be a puzzle here. How do I get in? So yeah, this became like second nature, just pressing this R button. Like I was spamming it all the time, because especially obviously when I was looking for collectibles, but even when I wasn't, I was always pressing it to just see if anything would ping back, because it will ping back the other collectibles as well, which we'll talk about a bit later. The button comes to a close second, of which you will be spamming, is Y, because this is DK's punch button. You'll be using this to smash your way through the landscape to claim the treasures that you spotted with the R bumper. The next most important button in my mind is ZR, so that's the back trigger. You use this to trigger to break off pieces of the environment, which by tapping it, and then you can actually throw them quickly. You hold it down, you pick up you hold down the trigger to pick up the environment, and then you tap it to throw it quickly. Or if you hold down the trigger even more, a reticle will appear and you can actually aim where you want to throw it, which you can use to throw your piece of mud, rock or snow. And after that, the buttons are pretty standard. X punches up, B punches down, A jumps. The L bumper makes DK and Paulie whistle, that gives you like a little trail to show you which direction you need to go. And ZL makes Donkey Kong do a roll. And what's is cool, if you are holding a piece of environment and you press this button, you will sort of surf on the environment like a surfboard, so you can use this to move around a bit quicker. And it does all seem very pretty like run-of-the-mill. However, in like a Mario Odyssey fashion, experimenting with these controls can make DK's smoothment feel amazing. So I love using the combination of doing a jump, tapping the ZR, and then holding ZL, because ZR would kind of make you lunge forward, and then ZL makes you roll. So you can kind of jump off very far, lunge even further forward, go into a roll, land in a roll. Then once you get your timing right, you jump again and then do the same thing. So you're clearing massive areas of sort of land in one jumps. And again, it feels very reminiscent of the Odyssey, like throw the cap, land on the cap, put it back on, throw it again, like that kind of combo. And it wasn't something I was expecting to have in a Donkey Kong game, to be honest with you, but it feels great. And again, playing Kirby in the Forgotten Land now afterwards, that game just feels so slow. Like it feels like Kirby's moving through, I don't know, peanut butter or something. Like it's so slow compared to this, because all you can do in Kirby games is basically run forward and like float jump. And yeah, and it felt so good. Like it made maneuvering across the map feel so fun. And even though you could teleport with the tel eel ports, which are like these eels that will swallow you up and take you to other parts of the map or to other layers, I just decided that I wouldn't use those. I would just go and run and jump my way there, because it felt so nice and so fluid to do it. And this feeling of amazing movement is helped by the obvious Breath of the Wild, like you can climb anything inspiration. So in my opinion, I think it's done even better in this game, because there is no stamina limiting how far you can climb. So it just really makes the movement feel truly free. Like you can more or less go anywhere over the map. There are some surfaces where you will slip down, so you can't actually climb them. But it's nice just to be able to be like, start a new area and just completely explore it, because of being able to climb up to the highest point and get your bearings or whatever, and not have the stamina kind of slow you down. So that was, they obviously could, I don't think they could do it in Zelda. That was kind of part of the gating of that game, without actually having gates, was a stamina bar. But it does feel nice to be able to just climb anything in this game and not worry about the stamina. And one interesting question that I kept asking myself through this game is actually, is it a 3D platforming game? Because I think, I was thinking this as I was playing, and then James in the Beat Your Backlog Discord server kind of asked the same question and reminded me I need to speak of it. Because there isn't necessarily 3D levels in this game that you might see in a 3D platformer. And I think like it might just be that 3D platformers are evolving, because there isn't really levels in it. There are more open world layers with areas that have been planted that give you something to do. So, again, a bit like Odyssey and its moons. There are sort of areas where you're like, okay, there's obviously something over there, like whether it's a banana or one of the other collectibles, there's something there, and you go over however you want to. You can just walk over, you can do the long jumps like I said, and you can then solve whatever puzzle is there, or smash up whatever earth is there, whatever you need to. And it's just it's just not really like there aren't really sections in the game where there are like moving like trapdoors that you have to wait to jump onto or whatever. There's not really any, I don't know, it's like if you think of Mario 64, which feels very open world, but it's also very sort of level based, where you have to platform through the levels to do that. That isn't really the case here. Like, I think this game has definitely sort of evolved that genre, or at least created a branch of it, where I would say that the exploration, it's more of like an exploration collectathon game with platforming elements rather than it being a 3D platformer. And I think you would say this game feels way more like Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom than you would say it's like Astro Bot. Like, Astro Bot is like a level-based 3D platformer where the challenge of the game is being able to get over the gaps that the levels have by platforming. And this isn't really the case at all in Donkey Kong. It's more like, like I said, like you are looking for these items, you are exploring the world. There are some sort of mini puzzles that you have to do to get these items, and some of those puzzles have some platforming elements, but the game itself isn't really a 3D platformer, I would say. And I think really the ability to climb everywhere is one of the reasons why this has shifted, because it means there are less traditional platforming sections. Because in an older game, you might have had a mountain and be like, right, I have to platform up the mountain to get to the top. In this game, it's just like, well, I just climb the mountain and I'm at the top, So yeah, it's interesting. Like, I think even like in the challenge rooms, there are some platforming areas, but still they aren't traditional. Like, if you think of Astrobot, they aren't really like that at all. Like, they're more like Breath of the Wild shrines, which we'll talk about, where it's sort of a puzzle that you have to be able to solve yourself, and the game gives you the tools to do that. So yeah, I don't think this is a bad thing for the game. I think it's just on observation, and I'm kind of glad that James was thinking this too and brought it up, that it's not really a 3D platform, but everyone is calling it one, and also seeing Donkey Kong as a 3D platforming mascot. And it does get me kind of excited too. I know the Ukulele or whatever it's called is coming out soon, which is like the remake of Ukulele. And I'm like, I'm going to probably check it out, because I want to see how that approaches it, because I know a lot of the design philosophy behind that I think is based on like Banjo-Kazooie, and I think a little bit of the Donkey Kong 64. So I'm interested to see how that game shapes up as well. But yeah, just an observation. I'd be interested to know what you guys think, if you've played it, if you would really consider it a 3D platformer. And yeah, as we talked about, moving around the map is something you'll enjoy doing, and something you will be doing a lot in Bananza, because it is, it's kind of the main meat of potatoes in this game is looking for these elusive Banandium gems, aka bananas, which have been displaced by the Void Company. In total, there are 777 bananas that need to be found throughout its 15 layers. These could be hidden in plain sight, buried deep underground, locked behind combat encounters, or hidden within challenge rooms. Collecting bananas in Bananza is reminiscent of collecting moons in Mario Odyssey. However, I will say that unlike that game where it really felt like you could throw a stone in any direction and hit a moon and would find one, this game has a bit more of a refined feeling to where the bananas are, making finding each one feel like an achievement rather than an inevitability. And because of this, finding bananas is so addictive and fun, and it's the main aspect of the game that kept me invested. I always set myself a goal of finding 80 to 90% of a layer's bananas before moving on to the next layer, and even had it happen 3 times where I found all of the bananas in the layer naturally, because I was so invested for looking in them. Looking for them, I should say. Like I said, I was always spamming the R button to find them, and all of this meant that I actually finished the story with 682 bananas out of the total 777. So I managed to get a lot of them, I especially like finding them in the challenge rooms and the battle arenas. challenge rooms are the game's Breath of the Wild shrine, so I kind of foreshadowed this before, where I would say they're sort of like self-contained puzzle platforming gauntlets built around one mechanic of the game. They're very like sharp, inventive, and consistently entertaining with just the right difficulty curve, and they were my favorite part of the game, and I made sure to clear every single one of them. They also have a great quality of life feature by showing you each one always has 3 possible bananas to find, and it will always show you which of the bananas you've collected. So if you collect the leftmost banana, that always means it's the first banana in the area, and if you collect the rightmost, it's always the third one. So if the middle one is missing, you sort of know where you are in, or where you need to be in the room to find that banana. So I felt that was really nice because it didn't mean you had to like sort of pixel search the entire area or the entire challenge room to find the banana. You're like, okay, well, I know I have banana 1 and I have banana 3, so banana 2 must be somewhere between those two, and vice versa with the other bananas. So that was really nice and saved me a lot of headaches. And the battle arenas, they are much simpler, timed enemy clear outs, but even here Nintendo adds small twists. So it might not just be like you have to go in and just destroy 50 enemies. It could be that you go in and you have to beat enemies under specific conditions, so forcing you really to use the mechanics of the games in clever ways. So for example, some enemies can only be destroyed if they are in a shadow, so like a shadow has been cast on them, but in this arena you're in the arena and there are no shadows, but you have a mechanic in there that you can basically throw this material, and it creates sort of bridges of the materials. So inadvertently you've been taught in the game earlier, like, okay, I need to throw this material to make a bridge, but what the game hasn't like really taught you is like, oh well, if you make a bridge there will be a shadow underneath it. So you kind of put one and one together and they're like, okay, I need to create bridges over these enemies to create shadows, then I can go and destroy them. And I just think it's like things like that where it's just very intuitive, very clever, like it sort of teaches you the mechanic, and then it's like, okay, you know how to use a mechanic, now think of how you could use it in a different way to solve this challenge. And that's it's great because it makes you, maybe you go in and think, oh, what am I supposed to do here, but eventually the cogs will all fit into place, and I'm supposed to do this, and you get your banana at the end. And then in general, I think the mechanics used to find bananas throughout the game just feel like they originated from prototypes, with only like the most fun and experimental ones making it into the game. And there are, I would say, like, I don't know, like maybe dozens of different mechanics and different materials that are sprinkled throughout the game in like very small controlled areas where they are only in that area and then you don't really see them again. And again, it really feels like the developers worked on how, okay, we have this voxel environment with this physics engine. What can we do in it? And it just feels like they just went out and played and came up with and prototyped and just tried a lot of different things. And like I said, the stuff that felt fun and worked really well with the mechanics and the physics, they kept in and put in the games, and that is what we get to play with. And maybe the rest that wasn't so fun never made it to the cut. But I really like this sort of design, this sort of like this iteration and just experimenting and finding the fun in sort of the environments that you have, because I think it's like a great way to kind of make developers think differently and make them be like, okay, I have the tools, what can I do to make fun out of them? I think that's like a really great design philosophy. And I would argue these kind of challenges that like we saw in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, where the mechanics are all sort of based around physics, and let the creativity of those or leave the creativity of those physics up to you to solve the challenge in front of you. So it's basically like they say, here is the challenge, here is the tools, go play and come up with a solution. And I think that's a really sort of inspiring thing, because there is this Nintendo magic that people have had, this nostalgia that they have for these Nintendo games that are just so good and just so different, and you remember playing them as a kid and you remember loving them for whatever reasons, for like, I don't know, Zelda's dungeon designs, for Mario's platforming designs, for whatever, and now the new Nintendo magic really feels like this is the kind of just letting you go and play. Like, there are so many games that are like, here, you know, you walk into a room and a character will tell you, oh, there's where you need to go there. And they don't treat the player with really any sort of like the player is intelligent or wants to experiment with the mechanics in the game. But the new Nintendo Magic really feels like they are like, all right, we have created an environment for you to actually playing, and it doesn't matter how you solve the puzzle, but just solve it, and that just feels very, very refreshing. And it's something that this game does really well, like where you are like, you might be the most direct person in the world, and like, I am just going to smash my way through to every banana I can find. And that's a perfectly reasonable way to do it. Or you might be more of a person that is like, okay, I just want to, I want to experiment. I want to try what these mechanics are, and the game lets you do both, which I think is great. But it is not just bananas that you'll be searching for in Bananza. You will also be combing each of the layer 4 fossils, and these tend to be more numerous than the bananas, and they used to buy cosmetics for Donkey Kong and Pauline. And that's right, there are cosmetics in this game, and they are cute. For DK, it's broken down to a pair of breeches, a new tie, and a different fur color. And for Pauline, she gets an entirely new outfit, which sort of matches to the theme of the level you're currently playing in. And all of the cosmetics, they have passive abilities to them. But in my opinion, I think the passive abilities are a bit too passive, making the effort of unlocking them and then upgrading each of the items feel a little bit pointless. For me, I was mostly going off of the vibes for my DK's outfit, and just choosing what I thought looked best rather than looking for specific abilities. Because I felt like most of the abilities that you get, when they become good, you're usually finished with the level that you would be using it for. So it's kind of nice to go back at the end if you are trying to do a completionist run and find all of the bananas. But it's kind of like, well, now I've fully upgraded this suit, but I'm about to leave the level. So what's the point in upgrading? What's the point in upgrading the breeches for this level? And that being said, there is one item I think is really good actually, and it's a tie, which it gives you a higher chance of spawning treasure chests. So treasure chests can be filled with gold. They can be filled with maps to fossils or maps to bananas. So this is quite good because it gives you a higher chance of spawning them. And if you find maps to a fossil or to a banana, it will put a ping on your map so you know roughly where you need to go. So that's very helpful when looking for those collectibles if you are doing a completionist run. And speaking of collectibles, the last two that you'll be looking for in the game, and you will be absolutely drowned in throughout the game, are gold and banana chips. So gold you get all over the world, and though it seems a little bit worthless at the start of the game because you are inundated with golds, like within the tutorial, by the end of the tutorial you'll have like 2,000 or 3,000 gold in your pocket. But it does become valuable at the end of the game. There are some bananas locked behind how much gold you have. And there is also some gating in the final levels of the game where it says, oh, well, you can basically skip a lot of platforming if you have the gold, and we'll build a bridge for you. And it's sort of meant to be that you are supposed to pay this much gold, but if you are good at doing platforming, you can skip that. So my advice would be make sure you have a lot of gold on you whilst you're playing the game, because it saves a little bit of a headache later on. It's also good to buy banana maps. So there is an item store which you can spend your gold on, and you can buy maps to bananas. So again, if you're looking for a completionist run and you're trying to finish the game, then it's good to help you find where the bananas are. The chips are a little bit less frequent than the gold, but they can still be found everywhere. And you need these to buy one banana from the chip seller on each level. So there's a vendor, I think he's actually called Chip Vendor. And I'm just taking a sip of coffee. Yeah, so you need to buy at least one to kind of take that banana off the list of bananas for the level. One banana costs 100 chips. And no, you can buy multiple from the same vendor. Like I said, only one counts towards the actual total for the layer. It was I didn't really put that much thought into collecting chips. It just seemed like passively as you were playing the game, you always find enough chips and always have at least 100 for a new level. And I found out the hard way, like, that you can keep buying bananas if you want to from the vendor with chips, but only one counts towards the layer. So if you're looking to level up, which we'll talk about in a second, you can buy as many as you want. But if you just want it for the completionist, then only buy one banana with chip per level. And the reason that you are collecting so many bananas in the game is because there is a sort of level up system to the game. And and the game, as most games in 2025 do have, there are RPG elements. So yeah, the RPG elements to this are a lot of DK's abilities, where what happens is when you collect 5 Banandium or bananas, you get 1 skill point, and then you can use those skill points to upgrade Donkey Kong. These are things like, the first thing, and the only thing that I think you really need to upgrade is his clap. So you can upgrade it. It costs at first, 1 banana, and then 3, and then 5, or whatever. And it extends the range of his sonar signal. So that means, with 1 clap, by the end of the game, you can see most of the level already. So you already know where you need to go. That was very helpful. Another good one is you can upgrade his punching power. So there are different materials in the game, and some materials need more power to be used against them to break them. So if you're watching the video right now, there is like rock on the screen, which needs more power than mud. So it's good to upgrade that. And as we'll talk about a little bit later, there are these things called Bananza powers. They can also be upgraded. There's lots of different things. But to be honest, I didn't like this element. Like, it just felt very sort of like, let's put this in to give the player a bit more reasoning to find the bananas, because it's quite interesting. Like, if you played Mario Odyssey, you needed X amount of moves to move on to the next level. In this game, you don't need that. Like, you can get through every single layer without really finding a banana if you want to. Like, there might be some that are mandatory to find, where it's like in the tutorial, it's like break the banana, otherwise the next section of the game won't happen. But most of the layers you can just get through with maybe 1 or 2 bananas, whereas in in Kirby or in Mario Odyssey, it's like, you need 50 in this level to move on to the next one. So it kind of made me think of like this gave players a reason to collect more bananas, because you want to get skill points to upgrade your Donkey Kong. But to be honest, I just felt like collecting the bananas was fun enough for me. I didn't need this extra layer on top of it. Also, I just don't really think the powers that you're upgrading, most of them aren't really worth upgrading. Like, it's a lot of stuff where you're just like, well, this could have been maybe something that you find within the world. Like, I think I would have preferred it if there was more sort of like Metroid statues, that as you're exploring the world, you find these statues and it's like, now you get an upgraded punch, now you get more speed, now you get whatever. I think that would have been a bit more interesting, because it would have given you a bit more achievement, a feeling of achievement to unlock stuff. Whereas most of my experience with the game was just like, I am sitting with 15 skill points in the bank because I'm like, there's nothing I really want to spend them on, and I'm waiting until I get the next Banandium power to see if that's any good and if there's anything worth upgrading there. And then most of the time it wasn't. So towards the end of the game, I was just like, I'll just upgrade everything that I can. Like, there's no point. What's the point in keeping all of these things in the bank? So yeah, it feels like, again, it feels like a very modern take for Nintendo to add this RPG elements to the game. But I don't think they were necessarily needed, unfortunately. So yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of this. A different thing I was also not the biggest fan of, to be honest, was the Bananza powers. And so yeah, as you progress through the game, you will unlock eventually 5 Bananza powers from each of the layer elders from the main 5 layers of the game. And each of these elders is a giant DJing animal who needs your help to restore their ancient record, which has been broken into various pieces by the Void Company. And after restoring their ancient records, the elders will teach you their power, transforming you into a weird mix of a gorilla and whatever animal they are. So the ones, I won't spoil any of the other ones, but the ones that were already shown off is a zebra and an ostrich, and a Kong. So they range from a Kong, so another gorilla, which turns DK into a towering gorilla wrecking ball, to an ostrich, which allows you to glide and throw explosive eggs at enemies. And yeah, these transformations reminded me a bit of Samus getting upgrades to her suit in the Metroid series, as they sort of then open up different areas within the layers which might not have been accessible before. However, I don't think all of the transformations are winners. The zebra was like an ability that I felt like was too specific to its layer. Like, you only needed to use it for one very specific thing. Like, the zebra can run fast, and there are some terrain where if you just walk on it as Donkey Kong, he falls through, but the zebra can run over it quickly. And yeah, it just felt a little bit like a one and done. Like, all right, I never need to use this ever again. And I also feel like the Kong power was a little bit too overpowered because it was just like Donkey Kong on steroids. So for a lot of the game, I was just using that to be like, well, I need to smash terrain faster, so I'm going to turn into the Kong and smash things up quicker there. But what is cool about the powers is how seamlessly you switch between them, so it's instant when you switch between them. And there is a very cool challenge room where you do need to use all 5 of the Bananza powers to knock down a building in a very short amount of time. And this challenge was honestly probably the hardest one I came up against in the game, because you had to like really be perfect in timing. There are like these concrete columns that you have to knock down on different layers in this building, and it has to be flawless. And the way that you have to do it is that you have to be able to make sure you are switching between the different Bananza powers at the right time to make sure you can get through the building in a fast enough time. So it felt very cool, like going in as the Kong, smashing up the concrete, turning into the ostrich to go up like an airstream, then turning into the zebra to run across an area to get to the next airstream, back into the ostrich, fly up, then turn into another creature and another creature, and then eventually, like literally down to the hare, finish the level. So that was like the best case I felt like of using all of these Bananza powers, but otherwise they weren't necessarily the best. Like they were cool, but yeah, like I said, I felt some weren't the best. And as I was writing this review, I felt like maybe I did a bit to this review afterwards, after finishing my first draft, but I felt like I was being very positive on the game, and so I thought the question would come up why this game isn't a 10 out of 10 for me. But now actually talking back and going through it, I'm like, okay, I have been quite critical on a lot of things, but yeah, anyway, this game, why it's not 10 out of 10 for me, I would say like the first 15 hours of the game, I was convinced I was going to give it a 10 out of 10. It was one of those rare games that for me, when I wasn't playing it, it was all I was thinking about, and all I couldn't wait to get back to playing it. Like as soon as like my daily tasks were done, I was like, I'm just gonna play this game for the rest of the evening. And it's not often I have games like that. Usually I'm much more of a person that is like, you know, like I'll sit down for 20 minutes, half an hour, maybe an hour max, play a game and be like, okay, I'm kind of good for now. I'm gonna go off and do something else and then come back later. But this was like every evening, 2 to 3 hours for 2 weeks more or less. But after that 15-hour mark, I do feel like there was a very severe slump in my excitement for the game, where I felt like the pace of the game had really slowed down a bit, and it felt like I was mostly just really going through the motions of the game. And this is where that question we asked before about can smashing up an environment last the whole game really come into focus, because I remember like asking in my Discord, like telling them where I was in the game, because there was a seemingly important story point, and I was like, I must be close to the end now because it's a big revelation or whatever. And I was shocked to find out that I was only about 60 way through the game, and I was really thinking like, God, like if this goes on, I don't know if I'm going to get to the end of this game. And I think the culprit of this slowdown was the ice layer of the zebras, which is the game basically splits and it says, do you want to go to the ice layer or the jungle layer? And I had a feeling the ice, because I hate ice layers, and specifically this one because, like I said before, it's ice and snow mixed with lava, so combined into one level. So it was a very frustrating level, like I said, and at the end of it, I felt like it wasn't very rewarding because I got this zebra mechanic that you don't really use much for the rest of the game. And yeah, I think it shows how much I dislike this layer, because it was the layer where I found the least amount of bananas. Like I said before, I was trying to get like 80 to 90%. I think in this one I got 60 or something like that. And I think it was also at this point where I realized that the story wasn't quite going to hit that expectation of like Pixar level that I was, or at least like 90s, late 90s, early 2000s Pixar level, maybe not modern day Pixar level, even though they do seem to be coming back. But yeah, it was also there where I was like, okay, this story isn't quite hitting the notes I thought it was going to. But yeah, nevertheless, the game does pick up again. So there is after you get through that level, and a kind of middling level where you're in this like void area, it does pick up again, and then there's this like really cool beach level that introduces some very, very cool concepts and mechanics in it. And I think it shows there how much I liked it, because that was one of the levels where I got all of the bananas, so I loved that level again. And it really did feel like a binge towards the end. Like after that slump, like I felt like I put 20 hours into the game like really quickly, because it just became like so much fun to play it again, which was awesome. And yeah, I think it's, like I said, it's I think it's hard for any game to keep a player's attention for a full play time. Nevertheless, I think like if Donkey Kong had 10 layers maybe instead of 15, its play time was reduced to maybe 25 hours instead of 35. I think it would have been a 10 out of 10 game for me. I think there are definitely some layers in the game that Zebra one mostly felt bad. I don't think there were really any other layers that felt bad, but there was definitely some where I was like, do I need to be in this? Does this need to be a thing? Like it's like almost like a 0.5 layer to me. So yeah, I think if some of those had been removed too, the game would have been way more streamlined, felt way better, and it would have been a 10 out of 10 for me. But there is one aspect of the game that is definitely a 10 out of 10 for me, and that is its graphics. This game is so beautiful. Like, I love this kind of renaissance from Nintendo that it's been having with its graphics over the last, 3 or 4 years. From Mario Kart World to, like I said, I'm playing Kirby in the Forgotten Land. That game is unbelievably good looking, especially on the Switch too. And it seems like Nintendo is trying to breathe more life and texture into their IPs. And for me, this absolutely works with Bonanza. Donkey Kong's refreshed design looks great. Its facial animations are unbelievable. Again, you wouldn't think a Nintendo character would be this emotive and imaginative, because I feel like Nintendo for a while was so cookie cutter and everything, just in all the games, everything was just the same thing over and over again. But this, it definitely takes like a grumpy monkey, from the older games, and makes him way more charming, way more likable. And in addition, the worlds look lush and they're inviting to explore. It happened in Mario Kart World, right? Like, there was this thing of, there are still basic like flat textures in some areas that they obviously use to sort of to optimize performance. But this game doesn't feel like that. Like, everything feels like it's detailed. Like, there is there is grass sticking out of the ground. There are branches coming off of trees. Like, everything feels lush and feels like it has texture. I know there has been some discourse online about the textures looking a little bit muddy because because a lot of the game is basically mud, more or less, because that's what you use to throw. And I do agree with him. Like, there are bits where you're a bit like, okay, that doesn't look the most beautiful. Like, it looks very sort of what's the word? Like it's just there to do its purpose, and that's it. I can't think of the word. However, I think though that considering most of the environments are destructible, it still looks pretty good. In addition, the cutscenes look great, even if some of them are kind of reused for the Bonanza power. So it's basically the same cutscene over and over, reused with just different elements switched out. But it's also very cool to see how the artists have managed to replicate many of the textures used in the Donkey Kong Country game. So this was one thing I heard Tim Geddes talking about on the Kind of Funny Gamescast, I think, where there are some elements of the level that look to like 2.5D, where it's on a 2D plane, but obviously all of the elements are 3D. And this happens a lot in some of the challenge rooms where there are nostalgic sort of like nods of the head back to the Donkey Kong Country games. And it's just cool how the characters almost feel like they're puppets, but obviously aren't. And they have this strange texture on them that, again, like feels very plastic, like almost like they look like toys. And it's just very cool, like how, games from the 90s, the characters look like that, at least on the box art, because that was the best that was like the best 3D rendering you could get at the time. And how they've now, with modern 3D rendering, that makes Donkey Kong, like the character, look like, you can see the fur on him, you can see like his movement of his chest and facial expression and whatever. But then also that they managed to mix it in where they made modern assets look old-fashioned, which looks really cool, and it's hard to explain. But if you just search for the opening cutscene of the Ingot Isle on YouTube, you'll see what I mean, because it shows you it there. Like, it almost looks like the background is parallax with these kind of toy monkeys moving around. It looks so cool. And I don't really have any nostalgia for the DK game, so that might be the reason that, I missed a second. So I seem to have missed a section, but I want to talk about the sound. So the sound in the game, I was a little bit disappointed in it, because I know Donkey Kong has like this history of having great music, and it might be that like, because I don't really have a history with Donkey Kong, that I was not as excited about the sound, because a lot of the musical tracks in the game are used more as like atmospheric backing music rather than like main themes, because there aren't really any levels, right? Like if you go into a platformer and each level has its own theme, it becomes very memorable of like, this is the theme for that level, this is the theme for that level. In this game, it's in an open world, so there is music playing all of the time, but the music just becomes more atmospheric and a little bit more generic, and is therefore quickly forgotten. There are some good tracks for the Bananza power, so when you turn on the Bananza powers, like a track plays, and it's and it has like its own sort of genre of music for each different track. So there's one that feels more like a Jennifer Lopez song. There's one that's more kind of like heavy DJ music. Pauline is like singing quotation marks with them, but it's annoying because she doesn't sing in English with them. It's just her also like doing like this like be da sleep-a-doo slabadoo labadoo, like kind of fake language, which I think is a bit disappointing since she is voice acting. And if you listen to my 2T episode, you'll know how much I don't like that. And I've already talked about it here, so I'm not going to go and talk about it more. But there are a lot of old school Donkey Kong Country tracks reused in the game that do add some fan service and poke at players' nostalgias. Even for me, like there was a lot of them I recognize, even though I've never played those games. And I really felt like you could tell like this is an old track and this is a new track, just because the quality just felt way better, and sort of the playfulness of the tracks just felt more, because like I said, the new tracks do feel just very sort of like they're meant to be played in the background. You're not really meant to pay any attention to them. And it's quite interesting because there was one collectible I forgot. This is probably the rarest collectible, actually. Is that when you kill enemies, there is a chance that they'll drop a vinyl disc, and it unlocks a random track from the game. And at your getaway, which is like this little camp that you have, you can choose to play one of those tracks there. And once I basically got the main Donkey Kong Country theme song, I didn't play any other track there, so that was my favorite one. So yeah, I would say like the sound isn't the best in the game, especially like now I'm playing Kirby, as I said, and the sound in that game is like amazing, like orchestral, top quality Nintendo, to a point where I'm like, did they really need to go this hard for a Kirby game? Whereas this game feels a little bit like maybe they dropped the ball a little bit. So that brings us on to the question, should you play Donkey Kong Bananza? And Donkey Kong Bananza is a game that you need to buy a Nintendo Switch 2 for. It is everything a Nintendo fan could want from a Nintendo game, a confident, playful platformer that anyone can enjoy, sprinkled with nostalgia from other Donkey Kong games that fans of the series will appreciate. For its story did not quite meet the expectations I had for it, it is by far the best Nintendo story we've had in years, and the ending will make pre-existing Donkey Kong fans go bananas. I love the design mentality behind the game. Searching for the Banandium gem feels like a refined, mature version of Super Mario Odyssey's moons, and the challenge rooms hidden throughout the game are an obvious nod to the most recent Legend of Zelda games. Furthermore, DK's facelift is one of the best in video games, making him a lovable character mascot rather than the polygonal, angry ape he appeared to be in previous games. If it's so good then, why is it not a 10 out of 10 for me? Well, the game has a few points I didn't like. Its pacing gets bogged down a little in the second act, making me wish some of the layers were cut. I also don't think the new music is as high quality as other aspects of the game. That being said, if you want a Nintendo Switch 2 or have been eyeing one recently, you need to play this game. I think it will be placed in the same echelon as Breath of the Wild for how it rejuvenates and somewhat revives a Nintendo IP that has been stagnant for a few years. I also think the design mentality for the game will be adopted by other developers, influencing the industry for years to come. So if you want to check out my written review of the game, it's on Patreon, and I actually gave the game a 9 out of 10. And yeah, I'm not sure if like looking back, I'm not sure if I really got across how much I like this game. Like, I think reading this out sort of loud and talking it through, I seem way more negative on the game than I actually am. Like, this game is like, it is one of the best games I've played, most likely. Like, it reminds me of playing Breath of the Wild, and it also has that exact same environment, right? Like, you have this new machine that you're excited for. You're like, in this case, I was waiting for the Nintendo Solo experience. I was sort of like having a bit of like buyer's remorse with the Switch 2. Not necessarily because I don't like it, but like, did I really need to buy it at launch? Because if you've read or listened to my Mario Kart World review, I wasn't that impressed with that. The only other game I'd been playing on it was Zelda, the Wind Waker, the GameCube backwards compatibility port thing. So it wasn't like the most like inspiring lineup of games for me anyway on the Switch 2, and I wasn't really interested in playing any of the other third-party games that released so far. But this game is the game where it's like, okay, this was worth it. Like I said, if you are sort of on the fence and are waiting to buy a Nintendo Switch 2 for whatever reason, and you just maybe you never played a Donkey Kong game before like me, but if you just generally like video games, I think this is a game that you will play, you should play, and you will love. It is, like I said, it's one of the best games that I've played. It has it shows this Nintendo magic again. Like again, I keep bringing up Zelda, but it reminds me of Tears of the Kingdom of being able to strap stuff together and mess around with the physics. It reminds me of that. Like it looks amazing. I didn't mention this in the review. Like it ran okay, like reasonably well. There are a few stutters, which is frustrating that still we aren't getting like a solid 60 FPS on the Switch 2 with these new games. But yeah, I mean, not so much, like it's by no means that you are really, it's going to ruin your experience. It's just as a critical review of the game, its performance wasn't like flawless. But if you are into video games and you've just bought a Switch 2 and you're like, I need something to play, or you are thinking about buying a Switch 2 and are thinking about picking up a game, you should definitely pick up Donkey Kong Bananza. It's great. Like I went to do a bit of the end game stuff. So what happens after the end game is I won't spoil it, but there is end game content there, and I did the first section of it and was like, okay, I don't really want to do this anymore because I sort of spoiled myself in finding out what happens when you actually beat the game. Like the reward might not be worth it, so I decided to move on to Kirby and some other games instead. But still, this it's a game that I still think about now when I'm not playing video games. It's just great. Like it's one of those games, like I said, that it becomes all you can think about, and that really hasn't happened to me since Breath of the Wild. So definitely check it out if you've got a Switch 2, or if you're thinking of picking up a Switch 2 in the future. Definitely buy it because it is a fantastic game. So yeah, sorry if it came a little bit negative across in the episode because it is a fantastic game. Like it's so good. But yeah, so guys, that has been episode 74. I would love to know what you thought of the episode, and also if you picked up the game, what you think of the game, or are you planning to pick up the game, and has this episode tipped you over the edge to go and get it? As always, you can let me know if you are listening on Spotify in the comments, but if you're listening on any other podcasting platform, please do go to the Blue Sky and message me there, or you can come and join the why am I messing up the end? You can come and join the Beat Your Backlog Discord server, the link to which will be in the description. Like I said, this episode or this podcast is supported by Patreon. So if you enjoyed and do want to help support the show, please consider going to patreon.com/beatyourbacklog and becoming a $2 or $5 member there. And as I spoke about before, that will unlock the Beat Your bonus vault of podcast episodes that are there. I think there's about 8 episodes so far. Like I said, at the end of this episode, there will be a snippet of one. So make sure you hang around for that if you haven't listened to them already. And if you like it, then yeah, there's lots more waiting for you in the vault. So as always, guys, thanks so much for listening. I hope you have a great day, and we'll see you in the next episode. Bye bye. Hello guys, Adam here from Beat Your Backlog, bringing you episode 5 of the Beat Your bonus exclusive Patreon podcast. The podcast only available for you Patreons, and we're here with episode 5. It's coming in a little bit hot, this one. The first 4 I pre-recorded months and months ago and was like, I've got so much time to record stuff. But then the Switch 2 came out and I was like, you know what, I haven't done an episode on it yet, and I wanted to make it kind of exclusive for you Patreons, or patrons I should say. So I decided to make the Switch 2 kind of review slash kind of, what would you say, like not response, but just my impressions after almost just over 2 weeks with it now. I'm recording on the 20th of June. It came out on the 5th. Wanted to just talk a little bit about my experience buying the Switch 2, what release day was like, and what I've been doing since release day over these last 2 weeks. Because yeah, I think most of you probably know me from my Nintendo Switch days with Switch Indie Fix, so I thought it might be an interesting topic people might want to hear about. So yeah, we'll get into it. But before we do, of course, I just want to say thank you to all of you patrons that have supported over the last couple of months. It means a lot to me. I hope you're enjoying these episodes. As always, if there's any feedback or you have any suggestions for what you'd like to hear about in future Beat Your bonus episodes, just let me know. You can let me know here on Patreon. There is like a direct messaging sort of functionality on Patreon, or I think most of you or all of you are in the Discord, so you can of course just ping me on Discord. And if you're not, if you're listening to this months down the line and you've recently become a patron, please make sure you do join the Discord. The Discord community is great. I'm having a bit of trouble talking. You can tell I've not podcasted for a while. Join the Discord community. Everyone's great there. We do daily games. We're playing Beat Your Bingo, or we are at least at the time of recording. It's getting close to the end. I think people have been enjoying it. I've been enjoying it. And so do join if you are a patron and you haven't done so already, because you also get your name in gold there. So make sure you join. But yeah, so thank you very much for your support. And yeah, the Switch 2, what can I say? My hype was it was hype, I was looking forward to this. It's been a game. I actually put off buying the OLED Switch because I was convinced the Switch 2 was coming way sooner than it actually did. And, maybe 3 or 4 years later than when the OLED released, they finally announced it and it released in 2025. And I have to say, I'm really pleased with the experience, the pre-ordering experience. Like I did the thing of, I went and made sure all of the online stores where I could buy the Switch, all of my data was up to date. I had the right card in, I had the right addressing. I put on a lot of notifications,